This was a banana republic in action. And the contrast between those two situations, the Mitchell situation and the Trump situation, is obvious for all to see. And it is not going to have the impact that you think it's going to have. It is not going to make your life easier as a Minnesota Democrat. It's going to make it harder, particularly on November 5th, 2024. Buckle up. We're coming. Calm. Keep calm. I know you're frustrated. I'm frustrated. But I also have this bizarre sense of peace, because I sense what hopefully you sense, which is that this is not going to work out for the left quite the way they imagine. We're crashing websites, throwing our money at Donald Trump. WinRed is down. People can't give him their money fast enough. I guarantee you within 24 hours he's going to set a fundraising record. Polls are likely going to shift in his favor. He was already beating Joe Biden. This is going to make it definitive. People see through the grift, and they're ready for a change. So don't feel like you have to strike out. Don't feel like you have to lash out. Don't feel like you have to take to the streets and burn anything down. That's not how we operate. That's how they operate. For my fellow Minnesotans, this is an odd day indeed, because on the same day that Donald Trump endures this show trial conviction on charges that aren't even articulated as to what the underlying crime is, we also had the chair of the Minnesota Democrat Party come out and call for the resignation of State Senator Nicole Mitchell. Now, this call comes out after the legislative session has concluded, after she was afforded the opportunity in the closing weeks of the session to cast decisive votes on consequential and controversial pieces of legislation. And so what I imagine, I haven't been on social media a whole lot since the Trump news broke. Been busy with other things, productive things, engaging with Minnesotans. But I have to imagine that a lot of the conversation that's happening on Minnesota Twitter right now is something to the effect of, ha, now you guys have a convicted felon as a presidential nominee. Where do you get off complaining about Nicole Mitchell? Well, you don't get it. The actual impact of this is precisely the opposite of what you perceive and expect. What's actually happening here is a contrast which vindicates Trump and indicts you. Because Nicole Mitchell was arrested and charged after being caught red-handed engaged in the burglary of her own mother. The elements of the crime for which I predict she will absolutely be convicted, and you'd have to be insane to think otherwise. The elements of the crime are well documented. She was caught red-handed doing it. And yet, she faced no consequence politically. She was allowed to continue casting deciding votes in the Senate. Only now are there public cries from her own party for her to resign when she's no longer of any political utility to them. Contrast that with Trump. The elements of the crime that Trump has been convicted of haven't even been defined. They had to go out of their way to manufacture charges based upon elements that occurred years ago, past a statute of limitations, and they had to come up with an extraordinarily creative method to try to transmute that into a felony charge. And again, on appeal, I'm predicting this is going to be overturned, because there are just so many different elements of this case that make it imminently reversible. Now, forget the judge who donates to the opponent of the defendant. Forget the judge whose daughter actively works to fundraise for the Democratic Party. Forget the fact that the star witness, Michael Cohen, was caught in a lie on multiple occasions during the course of the trial, the fact that the jury instructions were offered by the judge to the jury to basically ignore the law, to not come to a unanimous conclusion regarding what the underlying crime was, what that demonstrates is that this was a show trial. This was a Banana Republic in action. And the contrast between those two situations, the Mitchell situation and the Trump situation, is obvious for all to see. And it is not going to have the impact that you think it's going to have. It is not going to make your life easier as a Minnesota Democrat. It's going to make it harder, particularly on November 5th, 2024. Buckle up. We're coming.